The Zycra, a powerful alien race from a distant corner of the galaxy, had never known defeat. For centuries, they had conquered world after world, their black steel ships floating across space like shadows of doom. Their technology was unmatched, their armies vast and their minds cold and calculating. Now, they had set their sights on Earth. From their orbiting command ships, they watched the planet spin below, fascinated by its green lands, blue oceans, and buzzing cities. What puzzled them most, however, was humanity itself. Unlike the many, war-driven species the Zycra had encountered, humans had built a world of cooperation, culture, and creativity. Earth had its conflicts, yes, but nothing like the endless battles of dominance seen elsewhere in the galaxy. The Zycra saw this as a sign of weakness. In their view, a species that did not fight could not possibly survive the fires of war. With cold confidence, they prepared their forces to descend, believing Earth would fall within days. What they did not know was that beneath the calm surface of human civilization, a storm had already started to brew. In hidden labs deep under, mountains in abandoned subway tunnels, and in the forgotten ruins of old cities, a resistance had quietly begun to rise. Made up of scientists, soldiers, hackers, and thinkers from every continent, this network had been watching the skies for years, waiting for the day Earth might need to defend itself, not just from each other, but from the stars. They had seen the signs, intercepted fragments of alien transmissions, and used every ounce of their knowledge to prepare in secret. They did not have the firepower of the Zycra, but they had something far more dangerous: creativity, unity, and a fierce will to survive. The leaders of the resistance had studied the Zycra's past invasions. They knew how the aliens thought, how they attacked, and how they underestimated their enemies. While the world above remained unaware, thinking the lights in the sky were just strange stars or passing meteors, the resistance worked day and night, setting traps, building technology the world had never seen, and planning the impossible. As the alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere, cloaked by advanced stealth fields, the resistance sent out a silent signal. All across the world, from the icy lands of the north to the deserts of the south, hidden bases came to life. Engineers activated machines that bent light and energy, while codebreakers flooded the alien systems with confusing data. The Zycra didn't notice at first. Their arrogance blinded them. To them, this was just another mission, another easy win. But as they began to land and spread, things started to go wrong. Their communication signals flickered. Their weapons misfired. Strange energy fields interfered with their scanners. What should have been a flawless operation turned into chaos. The resistance didn't fight with brute force. They fought with timing, precision, and strategy. Every move had been planned, every step calculated. The Zycra were forced to pause, to question what was happening. They had never encountered an enemy that didn't meet them head-on, that didn't try to outgun them. Instead, Earth was turning into a puzzle they couldn't solve. And as their confusion grew, the humans grew stronger. Hope began to spread. People who had never met before became allies. Nations that once disagreed now stood side by side. The invasion had begun, but so had the fight for Earth. Not with rage or destruction, but with something the Zycra had never faced before: resistance powered by unity, fueled by heart, and carried by a quiet yet unbreakable courage. The skies darkened as the first wave of the Zycra invasion began, their ships casting enormous shadows over Earth's cities. Without warning, brilliant flashes of energy rained down from the sky, striking buildings, bridges, and communication towers. In moments, once bustling cities turned into ruins, their lights snuffed out, their streets filled with dust and silence. The Zycra believed their mission was nearly complete. With such destruction unleashed, they were certain that panic would spread, that humans would surrender or scatter in fear. But as the smoke rose, something unexpected happened. The humans didn't fall apart. Instead, they came together. Across the world, in cities large and small, people began to move not with fear, but with determination. Firefighters, medics, and rescue teams risked everything to save lives from the rubble. Families opened their homes to strangers. Even in the face of destruction, hope survived. The Zikra observed from above, confused by the unity they saw. Their scanners picked up unusual activity. Factories coming back to life, strange new. Signals in the air and clusters of humans gathering in damaged towns not to mourn, but to rebuild. The aliens did not understand that humans had faced hardship before, natural disasters, wars, diseases, and each time they had survived by standing together. Now, with the world under attack, that spirit burned brighter than ever. In hidden labs, scientists worked without rest, studying broken pieces of alien drones and weapons. Within days, they unlocked secrets of the Zykra's energy systems, using the knowledge to build shields and jamming devices. Mechanics pulled apart old farming equipment and city buses, turning them into armored vehicles. Hackers, once seen as rebels, became heroes by breaking into alien networks, confusing their movements and stealing vital data. Every person, no matter their age or background, became part of the defense. A retired schoolteacher in a small village used radio parts to block alien signals. A group of students created a mapping system that tracked enemy patrols. Musicians composed tunes that carried hidden codes, guiding survivors to safety. Doctors used alien metals to make stronger surgical tools, helping the wounded recover faster. The Zikra could not understand how so-called ordinary people could become such a force. They had expected soldiers, tanks, and fighter jets. What they got was something far more dangerous, an unpredictable, creative, and united population that refused to break. The aliens found themselves outmaneuvered not by power, but by cleverness. Ambushes appeared in strange places, in forests, under lakes, behind old factories. Humans used terrain, shadows, and silence as their allies. They didn't rely on strength alone. They relied on knowledge, on instinct, on timing. The Zikra's machines began to fail not because they were weak, but because humans found their weaknesses and used them like keys in a lock. Every time the aliens thought they had gained ground, the resistance shifted, evolved, and responded with something new. It was like fighting a mirror that kept changing shape. More troubling for the invaders was the spread of this spirit. As people saw what others were doing, they too began to act. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about defending a way of life, a world full of stories, memories, and dreams. Humanity was no longer hiding. It was rising. The Zikra's confidence began to crack. Their reports no longer spoke of easy victory, but of confusion and unexpected resistance. What had started as a conquest was now becoming a battle they could not control. And deep in their command centers, for the first time in centuries, the Zikra began to feel something they had long forgotten: doubt. They had underestimated Earth, underestimated humans, and now they were facing a force unlike anything they had ever known. Not because of weapons or war, but because of the strength that comes when people stand not for power, but for each other. As weeks passed, the war between the Zikra and humanity grew more intense, but something was changing, and the aliens could feel it. Their early victories had turned into confusion, and now their forces were scattered, slowed, and struggling. What troubled the Zikra most wasn't just the resistance itself, but the way it spread like wildfire. Humans, even with their cities, in ruins, continued to fight with a quiet, unstoppable fire. They were not driven by hate or conquest, but by something deeper, a shared belief that their home was worth protecting, no matter the cost. Across the shattered planet, people stood shoulder to shoulder, refusing to give in. From snowy mountain, villages to broken skyscrapers, from isolated islands to underground bunkers, Humanity's will held firm. The Zekra, used to controlling minds through fear, found themselves facing something unfamiliar: unity without command, strength without central control. Each defeat they suffered was not just a military failure, it was a blow to their pride. And then came the mission that changed everything. A young human commander named Emma Hayes, known for her calm thinking and fearless heart, had been watching the skies since she was a child. Now, she stood at the center of Earth's last hope. After studying alien patterns, energy signals, and ship layouts, Emma discovered a weakness in the Zekra's main battlecruiser, a massive vessel that powered many of their weapons across the planet. If it could be shut down, it might turn the tide. The plan was risky, the odds small, but Emma saw no other way. She gathered a small team of scientists, pilots, and engineers, each chosen not for their strength, but for their minds and courage. They knew the Zekra would never expect such a direct strike. Using the cover of a fierce storm, created by Earth's own unpredictable weather systems, they launched their attack. Flying through rain and lightning, dodging sensors and using the magnetic fields of the Earth to hide their movements, they approached the giant ship that hovered above a mountain range like a floating fortress. Inside the ship, the Zekra were unprepared. They had locked down every system for outside attack, but never imagined someone would slip in from below, using natural caves and a burst of geothermal energy to blast a hole into the ship's underbelly. Emma and her team climbed through wires, corridors, and strange alien tech, setting charges and planting a pulse bomb made from salvaged Zekra energy cells and human engineering. At the heart of the ship, as alarms began to sound and alien soldiers closed in, Emma made a choice. She stayed behind just long enough to activate the device, knowing she might not make it back. Her sacrifice was not in vain. The pulse bomb went off in a blinding wave of light, disabling the ship's weapon systems and causing it to crash into the sea far below. Across the world, the Zekra's weapons blinked off. Their power grid failed, and confusion broke out among their ranks. For the first time, Earth was quiet, then cheers erupted from every corner of the planet. It was a turning point. The invincible invaders had been wounded, not by brute strength, but by intelligence, teamwork, and heart. The Zekra began to understand the true nature of the species they had thought weak. Humans were not simply survivors. They were thinkers, builders, dreamers, and fighters when pushed. Their strength came not from dominance, but from connection. The war was far from over, but now it had changed. Humanity had shown that even the smallest spark of hope could grow into a flame bright enough to challenge the stars. And in that moment, the Zekra realized the truth. They were no longer the hunters. They were the hunted. As the war between Earth and the Zekra stretched on, the invaders found themselves drawn deeper into the mystery of humanity. What began as a mission of domination slowly turned into a journey of unexpected discovery. In their search for understanding, the Zekra began to study human history, hoping to uncover the secret behind the resistance that refused to break. In the ruins of ancient cities and buried libraries, they recovered old scrolls, books, and digital archives. What they found within those pages left them stunned. From the earliest moments of civilization, humans had fought, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. They had struggled against nature, against each other, and against empires that tried to rule over them. Every war, every hardship had left scars, but those same scars had also given birth to wisdom, resilience, and above all, a powerful desire to protect freedom. The Zekra had thought of war as a tool to control, to conquer, and to command. But humans had treated war differently. Their battles were often painful, tragic, and full of loss. But beneath that suffering was something stronger than any weapon: a purpose. Again and again, humanity had risen from ashes, rebuilt what was broken, and moved forward, learning, adapting, and remembering. The Zekra had expected to crush a soft and peaceful world, but they now saw the truth. Humans were peaceful. By choice, not because they lacked strength, but because they understood its cost. This revelation began to disturb the alien commanders. For centuries, the Zekra had believed that the most powerful species was the one that could dominate others. Now, for the first time, they saw another kind of power, a power born from compassion, memory, and unity. They observed how humans transformed every loss into a lesson, how even the young carried the wisdom of the past, and how pain did not weaken them. It sharpened them. Earth's people were not fearless, but they faced fear together. They didn't just adapt to survive. They adapted to grow, to become better, smarter, stronger. The aliens watched communities rebuild with their bare hands, saw scientists working, side by side with farmers and artists. They saw how ideas flowed across countries and languages, how every person contributed in their own unique way. This adaptability wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, and cultural. And it was this quality that made humans impossible to predict, impossible to truly defeat. The Zekra had no memory of ever being challenged like this. Their pride, once unshakable, began to crack as they realized they had misunderstood the very nature of strength. It wasn't control that made a species powerful. It was the ability to rise after being broken. In secret council meetings, alien leaders reviewed human literature and music, watched old films, and read stories passed down through generations. Each one showed a side of humanity they had never imagined. Bravery born in ordinary people, sacrifices made for love, and hope and a spirit that refused to give in. The more they learned, the more they saw that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its machines or tactics, it was its heart. And as the war turned, as more alien ships were pushed back and Earth's skies began to clear, the Zekra stood at a moment they had never faced before. They began to wonder whether victory was still possible, or if they had finally found a species not just strong enough to resist, but wise enough to change the very meaning of war. For in humanity, they did not just see an enemy, they saw a mirror of what they themselves had lost long ago, the courage to protect, not destroy. And in that realization, a new question rose among them, not how to win, but whether they should have ever started this war at all. The skies above Earth glowed with the fire of war as the final battle began. The Zekra, once proud and unstoppable, now stood weakened and desperate. Their fleets, once perfect in form and power, had lost their shine. Hulls were damaged, systems flickering, and their ranks thinned by months of resistance they had never expected. With their empire shaken and pride wounded, the alien leaders gathered their remaining strength for one last strike, aiming to crush Earth's final stronghold, a hidden base deep within the mountains where humanity's last defenses had gathered. But what the Zekra didn't know was that the humans had been waiting for this moment. All their losses, all their sacrifices, had been leading to this day. The resistance was no longer scattered or scrambling. Under the command of Emma Hayes, now a symbol of hope for all nations, Earth's unified forces stood together, not just as soldiers, but as protectors of their world. Across every continent, communities fed the fighters, children painted messages of hope on armored vehicles, and the skies echoed with signals of coordination, not chaos. When the alien fleets descended, they found not panic, but precision. The humans didn't fight with brute force. They fought with everything they had learned. Small teams guided the enemy into trap zones, drawing ships into valleys filled with magnetic storms or leading ground troops into narrow paths where ambushes waited silently. Engineers used Earth's weather to their advantage, directing lightning into enemy systems. Hackers scattered across underground bunkers fed false data into alien networks, making the Zekra believe they had the upper hand, until it was too late. Emma, standing at the command center, moved like a conductor leading an orchestra. Every action was timed, every decision shaped by knowledge gathered from months of resistance. As the battle raged on, it became clear the tide was turning. The Zekra's largest warship, once a symbol of their rule, was brought down when human pilots flew old aircraft coated with stealth paint made from alien materials, sneaking past defenses and planting energy disruptors inside the ship. It crashed into the ocean with a roar that echoed around the world. The final blow came when Emma led a direct assault on the alien command ship. With her small team of specialists, she boarded the vessel using a secret route mapped from stolen blueprints. Inside, instead of destroying everything, they shut down the core systems, disabling the ship without unnecessary loss of life. Emma stood face to face with the Zekra leaders, who now saw her not as a weak human, but as something far more powerful. A leader shaped by courage, compassion, and unshakable will. The Zekra were forced to accept the truth. They had not just been beaten by weapons or tactics, they had been defeated by the very spirit they had failed to understand. Humanity had not just survived, it had risen. With their fleets in retreat, and their command broken, the Zekra withdrew from Earth. The sky slowly cleared, the fires faded, and silence returned. Not the silence of defeat, but of peace. Around the globe, people stepped out from bunkers and shelters, not cheering, with wild joy, but standing quietly, side by side, knowing they had won something far greater than a war. They had won their future. There were no grand parades, no loud speeches, just the quiet rebuilding of a world that had proved its worth. Humanity had shown that strength lies not in destruction, but in unity, hope, and the will to protect what matters. The Zekra, flying back into the stars, carried with them a memory they would never forget, not of a weak species, but of a force unlike any they had ever faced. And on Earth, as the sun rose over a healing planet, Emma Hayes looked to the horizon, not as a hero, but as one among many who had stood together and reminded the universe what it meant to be human.